My dear friends, when we think of someone who inspires nations, we often imagine kings, warriors, or political leaders. But history tells us something deeper. Nations are not only built on policies and battles, they are built on character, values, and love. And very often it is a woman, a mother, a teacher, a leader, a nurturer who silently shapes the destiny of millions. Every home is a miniature nation. If a woman can inspire her home with values, courage, and hope, she can inspire a community. If she inspires a community, she can transform a nation. And when a nation is transformed, the world is uplifted. Let me share with you an example. Think of a mother raising her child with integrity. She may never appear on television or in history books, yet her child may grow into a leader, an innovator, or a servant of humanity. That quiet inspiration in her home can ripple into society. True power is not always loud. True power is often gentle, consistent, and full of compassion. And that is why women who inspire nations are not always in positions of authority. Sometimes they are in positions of sacrifice, positions of silence, but always in positions of strength. We must remember that the strength of a nation is not just measured by its economy or army. It is measured by the values that women pass on to the next generation. If those values are strong, nations flourish. If those values are lost, nations crumble. So, my humble request to all of us is this: never underestimate the influence of a woman. When she chooses to live with courage, dignity, wisdom, and love, she becomes a light, not just for her family, but for the entire world. She who inspires nations does not do it through force. She does it through grace. She does it by living in alignment with truth. She does it by standing firm when life shakes her. She does it by lifting others when they are broken. When we look back at history, our eyes often stop at kings, rulers, generals, and politicians. Their names are recorded in books. Their statues stand tall, and their speeches echo through generations. Yet, behind these great figures lies an often overlooked force: the women who silently instilled values that shaped the foundation of entire nations. A ruler may win battles, but what determines the soul of a nation is not merely its victories in war or achievements in politics. It is the values carried within its people. And these values, more often than not, have been planted in the hearts of children by women. Think of a mother sitting with her child in the quiet corners of her home. She may not have titles or armies under her command, but in her lap, she holds the next generation. With every story she tells, every word of encouragement she speaks, every act of discipline and love, she is shaping the mindset of tomorrow's leaders, thinkers, and citizens. While the world is busy glorifying visible achievements, she is silently building the invisible foundation. And history has shown us, when that foundation is strong, nations rise. When it is weak, nations fall. Let me remind you of a truth. A soldier may learn to fight from his training, but he learns honor, sacrifice, and courage from the values his mother whispered into his heart. A teacher may provide knowledge, but a woman, whether as a mother, sister, mentor, or guide, plants the seed of wisdom that determines how that knowledge is used. Without those values, knowledge can be dangerous. With those values, knowledge becomes transformative. Consider the story of great leaders across cultures. Many of them acknowledged their mothers or the women who raised them as the true inspiration behind their journeys. Why? Because it was not just about teaching them how to achieve success. It was about teaching them why success matters and how it should be used for service, not selfishness. A ruler can change borders, but a woman can change the heart of the ruler. And when the heart changes, the destiny of an entire nation changes with it. We often forget that nations are not made up of governance alone. Nations are made up of families. Families are made up of relationships. And at the center of these relationships often is a woman. When she lives by integrity, she passes it down. When she demonstrates resilience, she creates resilient communities. When she uploads compassion, she softens the hearts of those who will one day govern, teach, and innovate. This is why saying that women inspire nations is not a poetic exaggeration. It is a reality. They are the first leaders, the first teachers, and the first guides every human being encounters. Even when they are unseen, their impact is undeniable. When a woman instills values, she is not only raising a child, she is building the character of a citizen. And when millions of citizens carry those values, the spirit of a nation is formed. So, while history books may highlight battles, treaties, and revolutions, let us remember that the invisible revolutions, the ones that begin in the quiet guidance of a woman's words, are just as powerful. For nations are not only shaped by those who hold power, but by those who hold hearts. And in this, women remain the timeless architects of every society. Every nation is made up of millions of homes. And each home is like a miniature version of a country. Within its walls, decisions are made, values are tested, conflicts arise, and harmony is restored if we step back and observe. The dynamics of a family mirror the dynamics of a nation. A home has its leaders, its responsibilities, its culture, and its legacy. And at the heart of this home, often, stands a woman who quietly governs through love, patience, and wisdom. When a woman inspires her home, she does far more than create comfort for her family. She creates a system of values and principles that ripple outward. Her kindness becomes the lesson her children carry into their friendships. Her resilience becomes the strength her partner relies upon in difficult times. Her sense of fairness becomes the seed of justice that future generations may take into society. What happens within the walls of a home does not stay there. It echoes into the neighborhoods, the communities, and eventually the nation itself. Let us imagine for a moment that a nation is like a vast ocean. Every family is a drop of water within that ocean. If the drops are pure, the ocean will be clear. If the drops are polluted, the entire ocean is affected. Likewise, when homes are filled with compassion, discipline, and respect, societies flourish. When homes are broken by neglect, abuse, or indifference, societies suffer. It is not the grand speeches of leaders alone that shape a country. It is the whispered conversations in living rooms, the lessons taught at dining tables, and the values reinforced in the quiet moments of family life. And who is it that often anchors these homes? It is the woman who balances the emotional climate of the family. She becomes the healer when there is conflict, the motivator when there is despair, the teacher when there is ignorance, and the guide when there is confusion. She carries the invisible responsibility of shaping not just the well-being of her family, but also the moral fiber of the larger society. Think about history again. Before there were revolutions and reforms, there were families raising children who believed in fairness, dignity, and freedom. Before nations could stand tall on the world stage, homes had to stand strong with values. A society that respects women is a society that flourishes because the woman in her home becomes the first citizen of that nation's future. She nurtures the next leaders, the next thinkers, the next innovators, not by grand lectures, but by the simple, consistent example of her daily life. Even small gestures within the home can become lessons for life. When a woman forgives, her children learn the strength of mercy. When she perseveres through difficulties, they learn resilience. When she speaks truth, even in uncomfortable situations, they learn courage. And when she sacrifices her comfort for the happiness of her family, they learn the meaning of selflessness. These lessons form the foundation upon which societies are built. So, if we wish to understand the strength of any nation, we must first look at the strength of its homes. And if we wish to understand the strength of its homes, we must look at the inspiration women bring into them. Because it is through the home that society is shaped, and it is through society that nations are born. Inspiration is a mysterious force. It does not always announce itself with noise, banners, or loud declarations. Often, it moves quietly like the wind. You cannot see it, but you can feel its presence, and its effects are undeniable. True inspiration does not need to shout it lives in the silent strength of those who embody the values they wish to share. And some of the greatest sources of such inspiration are mothers, teachers, and leaders whose impact flows gently but powerfully into the hearts of others. A mother's inspiration is rarely in speeches or commands. It is in her consistency. It is in the way she faces adversity with dignity, the way she sacrifices without complaint, the way she loves without expecting anything in return. A child may not always remember her words, but the child never forgets her example. That quiet resilience becomes a voice inside the child's heart, guiding him or her long after the mother's words have faded. Such inspiration may not be documented in history books, yet it echoes across generations. Teachers, too, inspire in ways that cannot always be measured by exams or certificates. A teacher's power lies not only in transferring knowledge, but in igniting curiosity, in encouraging a hesitant student in believing in someone who does not yet believe in themselves. That small nod of encouragement, that gentle correction, that patient investment of time, these silent acts of faith plant seeds of greatness. Long after the formulas and facts are forgotten, the memory of a teacher's belief remains, shaping the character of an individual who may one day influence society at large. And then there are leaders, not the kind who only stand at podiums, but those who lead through example. A true leader may not always speak much, but when people look at how they live, they find inspiration. Integrity inspires more than instruction. Compassion inspires more than slogans. Humility inspires more than pride. A leader who lives by principles shows people not only what is possible, but also what is worth striving for. This kind of leadership is quiet, yet it draws people in more powerfully than speeches filled with empty promises. We must remember that inspiration does not always need applause. In fact, the most powerful inspiration often happens unnoticed. It happens in the way a woman wakes up each morning to care for her family despite her own struggles. It happens in the way a teacher stays after class to help a struggling student. It happens in the way a leader refuses to compromise values even when it is inconvenient. None of these moments make headlines, but together they weave the moral fabric of a nation. And that is why silent inspiration is so powerful, because it is authentic. It comes not from the desire to impress, but from the desire to uplift. It does not demand recognition. It simply radiates naturally. People may not always speak about it, but they feel it deeply, and it guides their own choices. So, whether it is a mother shaping the heart of a child, a teacher shaping the mind of a student, or a leader shaping the spirit of a community, silent inspiration continues to be one of the most transformative forces in the world. It may not be loud, but it is lasting. It may not be seen, but it is felt. And in the end, it leaves an imprint far greater than any words ever could. Influence is never confined to a single moment. It has a way of stretching beyond time, reaching into the future and shaping people we may never meet. A woman's influence, in particular, has this unique power of rippling through generations. What she teaches today does not end with her children. It travels into the hearts of her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and into the society that those future generations will build. Consider how a single seed grows into a tree. The seed itself may be small, but when planted in fertile soil, it produces branches, leaves, and countless fruits. Each fruit carries more seeds, capable of producing more trees. One small beginning can create a forest over time. Similarly, the values, lessons, and inspirations a woman instills do not end with her life. They multiply and spread, becoming the foundation for future leaders, thinkers, and change makers. Take the example of a mother teaching her child honesty. That child may grow into a leader, and because honesty was rooted in their character early, it becomes a guiding principle in their leadership. Now, everyone under that leader's influence whether in government, business, or community, feels the impact of that one lesson taught long ago in the simplicity of a home. The woman who taught it may never be known to the masses, but her influence quietly lives on in the actions of her child and in the thousands touched by their leadership. History gives us countless reminders of this truth. Behind many great reformers, saints, and visionaries, there stood women who influenced them profoundly. Sometimes it was a mother, sometimes a grandmother, sometimes a teacher, or even a friend. Their words, their sacrifices, or even their silent prayers built the moral courage of leaders who later moved nations. These women may not have held formal power, but their influence shaped the hearts of those who did. The beauty of this influence is that it is not forced. It does not come through authority, but through authenticity. When a woman lives by values, when she embodies kindness, resilience, and wisdom, those around her absorb it naturally. In the children watching her grow up with a sense of integrity without being formally lectured about it. Families guided by her quiet decisions learn compassion by seeing it in action. And as these qualities take root, they travel into the choices of the next generation. Think about how traditions, culture, and faith are passed down. More often than not, women carry them forward. The lullabies sung by a grandmother, the moral stories told by a mother, in the advice of an elder sister, these become the invisible threads binding generations together. They give identity, belonging, and strength. Without them, societies lose direction. With them, societies remain connected to their roots while moving forward with confidence. And when a woman's influence continues across generations, she does something extraordinary. She creates a lineage of leaders, not just in positions of power, but in all walks of life. Leaders in families, in workplaces, in communities, and in nations. Leaders who live not only to succeed, but also to serve. This ripple effect is why honoring women is not just about respecting individuals. It is about recognizing the far-reaching impact of their influence. For every act of kindness they show today, there will be a future where someone, inspired by that act, carries it forward. For every value they instill, there will be a generation that builds upon it. And in this way, one woman's influence becomes timeless, echoing across centuries, shaping destinies, and inspiring nations long after her own time has passed. When we think of power, our minds often go to images of thrones, crowns, armies, or political titles. We imagine authority as something loud, visible, and commanding. But history and life itself show us another kind of power, one that is not carried by fear or control, but by compassion, consistency, and quiet strength. And more often than not, this deeper power is carried gracefully by women. Authority can make people obey, but compassion makes people willingly follow. A woman who leads her family, her workplace, or her community with compassion touches hearts in ways no law or command ever can. Compassion softens resistance. It heals wounds. It builds bridges between people. Think of a mother comforting her child after failure. She does not shout, she does not impose. Yet her kindness gives the child courage to rise again. That is true power, lifting someone up without forcing them, changing their perspective through love rather than fear. Consistency is another form of power that is often underestimated. Authority may demand attention for a moment, but consistency builds trust over a lifetime. A woman who consistently stands by her values, who consistently shows up with integrity, becomes a pillar others lean on. People may not always praise her, but they rely on her. Her word becomes trustworthy, her actions dependable, and in a world that is constantly changing. This kind of stability is priceless. Quiet strength is perhaps the most profound power of all. It is the strength that does not need to announce itself, yet it is felt deeply by everyone around. Quiet strength shows in the way a woman carries her responsibilities without complaint. It shows in the way she endures challenges without bitterness. It shows in the way she remains calm when others panic. This strength does not roar like thunder, but it endures like the mountain, and in that endurance, it inspires countless others. The difference between authority and true power becomes clear when we see their outcomes. Authority may gain obedience, but true power gains respect. Authority may create fear, but true power creates love. Authority may last for a position or a term, but true power lasts for generations because it lives in the hearts of people, not just in their actions. Think about the women who shaped civilizations, not through armies or politics, but through compassion, consistency, and quiet strength. The mother who raised a leader with values, the teacher who nurtured a thinker, the wife or sister who gave courage to a reformer. These women may not have had titles, but their influence outlasted kings and rulers. Their true power was subtle, but it was enduring. This is why the most transformative leadership often comes not from those who sit on thrones, but from those who sit quietly at the center of families, communities, and societies. Their compassion heals, their consistency strengthens, and their quiet strength inspires. And though they may never wear crowns, they carry a power that crowns cannot match. True power, therefore, is not about how loudly one commands, but about how deeply one touches lives. It is not measured by the fear it creates, but by the love it sustains. And when compassion, consistency, and quiet strength guide a woman's life, she does not just influence her circle, she transforms the spirit of a nation. The greatness of a nation is not only measured by the size of its armies, the height of its skyscrapers, or the wealth of its economy. True strength lies deeper. It lies in the character of its people, in the principles they live by, and in the values that guide their decisions. And where do these values begin? Not in parliaments or universities, but in the intimate space of a family. And at the heart of this space, it is often women who nurture and protect these values, passing them gently into the souls of the next generation. A family is the first school a child ever enters. Before a child knows the world, they know the home. Before they learn from textbooks, they learn from the daily actions of their parents, siblings, and elders. A woman's role in this formative environment is profound. She shapes not only what her children know, but how they think, how they feel, and how they respond to life. The lessons taught in those early years become the compass children carry into adulthood. And collectively, those compasses determine the direction of a nation. Imagine a society where families nurture respect, honesty, and kindness. The children raised in such homes will grow up to be citizens who respect laws, honor relationships, and contribute positively to their communities. Now imagine a society where families neglect these values. Children from such environments may struggle with identity, lack empathy, or misuse their talents. Over time, this erodes the social fabric of the nation. The difference between flourishing societies and failing ones often comes down to the values rooted within families. This is why women play such a critical role in shaping national strength. Through daily choices, how they resolve conflicts, how they treat others, how they balance firmness with compassion, they are creating examples for future generations to follow. A child who sees fairness at home is more likely to demand justice in society. A child who witnesses patience is more likely to show tolerance in the workplace. A child who grows up with love is more likely to spread peace rather than violence. These connections are not accidental. They are direct. Even history supports this truth. Many reformers, leaders, and visionaries often credited their mothers or grandmothers as the foundation of their character. Why? Because nations do not suddenly produce heroes. Heroes are raised in homes. Nations do not suddenly produce wisdom. Wisdom is cultivated in families. Nations do not suddenly produce compassion. Compassion is lived and practiced daily by women who guide with love and discipline. The values women nurture also safeguard the moral strength of a country. Wealth can vanish. Armies can fall. Governments can change. But values are what sustain a nation through turmoil. Think of times of crisis, wars, disasters, or hardships. What carries people through is not just infrastructure or policies, but resilience, faith, and unity. And these qualities are born from the foundation of values nurtured at home. So, when we speak of national strength, we must not only look at external symbols of power. We must look inward into the homes where women quietly mold the next generation. Every act of kindness, every principle reinforced, every lesson shared becomes part of the nation's soul. And when women nurture these values with sincerity and consistency, they are not just raising children, they are raising the citizens, leaders, and guardians of tomorrow. When we hear the word inspiration, we often imagine grand speeches, bold gestures, and visible achievements. But true inspiration, the kind that moves nations and shapes generations, is often born in the quiet endurance of sacrifice and the steady flame of resilience. Women who inspire nations rarely do so from a place of ease. More often, Their influence emerges from how they respond to hardship with grace, courage, and an unwavering commitment to others. Sacrifice is one of the most powerful forms of leadership. A woman who gives up her comfort for the well-being of her family may never be recognized publicly, but her sacrifice becomes the foundation of stronger lives. She may go without sleep to care for her children, or without luxury to ensure her family's education. Her willingness to place others above herself demonstrates a form of love that words cannot capture. And when children grow up, witnessing this selflessness, they carry it into society, learning that true strength is not in taking, but in giving. Resilience is equally transformative. Life inevitably brings challenges, loss, failures, betrayals, and unexpected struggles. What defines a nation is not whether it faces hardship, but how it responds. And what defines a woman's inspiration is not that she is free from trials, but how she rises above them. A resilient woman teaches everyone around her that strength is not the absence of pain, but the refusal to be defeated by it. Her ability to keep moving forward, to hold her family together, and to rebuild after setbacks becomes a living lesson in endurance. History is filled with women whose sacrifices and resilience changed the course of nations. Some gave up personal dreams so their children could pursue greater ones. Others endured loss and hardship, yet transformed their pain into compassion for others. Their names may not always be celebrated in books, but their spirit lives on in the values they passed down, the leaders they raised, and the communities they held together. Without their quiet heroism, many societies would have collapsed long before they had the chance to flourish. Sacrifice and resilience also carry a universal message that leadership is not about privilege, but about responsibility. A woman may not wear a crown, but when she sacrifices for her family, she teaches responsibility. She may not hold an official title, but when she rises after hardship, she teaches courage. These lessons seep into the next generation and ripple outward into society, building nations not with weapons or wealth, but with strength of character. Even in everyday life, these qualities shine. A mother who chooses to stay strong after losing a loved one shows her children that pain can be endured with dignity. A daughter who works tirelessly to support her parents shows her community that duty is sacred. A teacher who continues to uplift students despite her own struggles shows that hope is stronger than despair. Each act of sacrifice and resilience becomes a spark, and when countless sparks gather, they ignite the light of a nation. So, women who inspire nations are not defined by the absence of hardship, but by the way they transform hardship into hope. Their sacrifices may be invisible, their resilience may go unnoticed, but their impact is eternal. They teach us that the true pillars of society are not made of stone or steel. They are made of human spirit, tempered by sacrifice and strengthened by resilience. When we speak of influence, we often think of power that is immediate, visible, and loud. But the kind of influence that endures across time that shapes not just one generation, but many, is built upon qualities deeper than appearances. For a woman, three qualities in particular make her influence timeless: dignity, courage, and wisdom. These qualities shine beyond circumstances, beyond culture, beyond even her lifetime. They become part of the legacy she leaves behind for her family, her community, and her nation. Dignity is not about wealth, titles, or outward recognition. It is about the way a woman carries herself, even in the most difficult moments. Dignity is the quiet strength of self-respect, the refusal to let challenges strip away one's inner worth. A woman who walks with dignity teaches everyone around her that life's storms may shake you, but they cannot diminish you. Children who grow up seeing their mother or grandmother maintain dignity, even through adversity, learn that respect is earned not by demanding it, but by embodying it. That lesson lasts a lifetime and inspires generations to uphold their own sense of honor. Courage is another timeless quality. Life inevitably presents moments that test us, moments when fear seems stronger than hope, when obstacles appear larger than our strength. A courageous woman does not deny her fear. She faces it with determination. Her courage may show in small ways, like standing up for what is right in her home or workplace. Or it may show in greater sacrifices, like speaking against injustice when silence would be easier. Her example tells others that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. Such courage ripples outward, giving others the bravery to face their own struggles. Wisdom completes this triad. Wisdom is not simply knowledge, for knowledge alone can be cold and mechanical. Wisdom is the ability to apply knowledge with compassion, fairness, and foresight. A wise woman does not just teach what to think, but how to think. She knows when to speak and when to remain silent, when to be firm and when to be gentle. Her decisions may not always be popular, but they are grounded in values that stand the test of time. In the generations guided by such wisdom inherit more than instructions. They inherit a framework for living. When these three qualities come together, dignity, courage, and wisdom, they form a legacy that no hardship can erase. Think of the countless women who, though not written about in history books, are remembered in families and communities for these very traits. A grandmother remembered for her calm dignity, a mother admired for her courage, a teacher respected for her wisdom. These are the figures whose influence continues to guide long after they are gone. Their words may fade, but their example becomes immortal. What makes these qualities so powerful is that they are not bound by time or place. Dignity will always command respect, courage will always inspire action, and wisdom will always guide decisions. They transcend trends, circumstances, and generations. And when a woman lives by them, she becomes more than a figure of her own time. She becomes a light for times to come. Thus, the woman who embraces dignity, courage, and wisdom does not only influence her present world, she creates a legacy that remains alive in the hearts of those who follow her. shaping the character of families, communities, and nations for centuries. That is why her influence is truly timeless.